All right, get ready for this one, because we're diving into a story that, honestly, sounds more like a Hollywood movie than a real headline. Cocaine sharks.
That's about as wild as it gets, right?
Yeah, and as wild as it sounds, it's a real thing.
It is,
Like
yeah.
sharks and cocaine.
Real phenomenon, yeah, with some pretty big implications, actually.
Okay, so our listener sent in like a whole stack of articles on this.
Yeah.
From National Geographic, we got the BBC in there, Al
Yeah.
Jazeera, The Guardian, and the AAAS. So
Wow.
people are talking about this.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So we're talking about like actual cocaine that was found in sharks
Yeah.
off the coast of Brazil.
That's right.
Not just like, oh, a little bit. We're talking levels that are like
Pretty high, yeah.
kind of alarming, honestly.
Yeah, definitely eyebrow raising.
So like what's the scientific breakdown of this?
So scientists were doing their thing, right?
Yeah.
Routine tissue analysis on a group of Brazilian sharp-nosed sharks.
Okay.
This is near Rio de Janeiro.
Okay.
And they found something they really were not expecting. Every single shark they tested, all 13 of them, positives for cocaine.
All 13.
All 13.
See, now that's a discovery.
That's a discovery.
That's wild.
Yeah, and it gets even, I think, more concerning when you look at, like you said, the concentrations.
Yeah.
We're talking up to 100 times higher than anything that's ever been recorded before in marine animals.
Wow.
So this isn't just like a little accidental exposure. This is contamination.
That's a bit unsettling, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So how does something like that even happen? Are we picturing like sharks like mistaking bricks of cocaine for like their lunch or something?
It's a funny image.
It is a funny image.
But the reality is, thankfully, less cinematic,
Okay.
but no less interesting.
Okay.
One of the things they found that was really important was this thing called benzoylecgonine.
Benzoyl what now?
Benzoylecgonine.
Remind me what that is again?
Yeah, so it's basically the main metabolite of cocaine.
Okay.
So when your body breaks down cocaine,
Right.
this is what it turns into.
Yeah.
And they found that in the sharks,
Interesting.
which means that they ingested it.
Okay.
It wasn't just like, external contamination.
So they ate it.
Yeah,
They ate it. They didn't just like swim through it.
exactly.
Okay, so ingestion, not just like accidental contact. Got it. But how's it even end up in the ocean?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
So the main culprits they're looking at here are sewage and runoff from drug labs.
Okay.
So when humans use cocaine,
Right.
it gets metabolized, it enters the wastewater system.
Yeah.
Now, Rio, let's just say their infrastructure is not known for its state-of-the-art water treatment.
So what we flush doesn't just magically disappear.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
The unfortunate reality is that a lot of these wastewater treatment plants, they can't filter out these pharmaceutical compounds.
Oh, interesting.
So traces of everything from painkillers to, these illegal substances, they can end up back in the environment and, in this case, the ocean.
And you also mentioned runoff from drug labs, so that's...
Yeah, so that's another piece of the puzzle. And this is where Brazil's kind of role in the global cocaine trade comes in, right?
Okay.
So the production process for cocaine is notoriously kind of messy.
Okay.
Often results in chemical waste that's just dumped directly into the water.
Not good.
So you've got this cocktail of pollutants,
Yeah.
and it inevitably impacts the marine life.
So we're essentially talking about a pollution problem, but with like cocaine as the secret ingredient.
Yeah.
What does that do to the sharks themselves?
That's a good question.
Does it turn them into like supercharged predators or...
You'd think so, right?
Right.
That'd be the movie version.
That would be a good move.
Yeah. But the reality is a bit more nuanced, unfortunately. I don't really know a lot about the long-term effects of cocaine on sharks.
Right.
The research is still pretty new.
Okay.
But early indications suggest that it might actually act more like an anesthetic for them
Oh, really?
than a stimulant.
So the opposite of what it does to us.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow, that's so weird.
The animal kingdom is full of surprises, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But just because it's not like turning them into, cocaine-fueled torpedoes doesn't mean there's no harm.
Right.
The authors of this study are really worried about potential reproductive issues,
Okay.
especially because a lot of these sharks they studied were pregnant females.
And those sharks are already facing some challenges, right? Like overfishing, if I'm remembering correctly.
that's right.
Like they're already considered a vulnerable species.
They are, yeah.
So that's not a good combination.
They're not at all, no.
So we've gone from cocaine sharks being like this funny headline
Right.
to like a really serious conversation about pollution
Exactly.
in a species that's already vulnerable.
Yeah, and it really makes you think about the bigger picture, doesn't it?
So let's talk about that. What is the bigger picture? So we've gone from cocaine sharks being like this funny headline
Right.
to like a really serious conversation about pollution
Exactly.
and a species that's already vulnerable.
Yeah, and it really makes you think about the bigger picture, doesn't it?
So let's talk about that. What is the bigger picture?
So this isn't just an isolated incident, right?
Right.
Like, this kind of throws light on a much wider problem.
Okay.
Pharmaceutical waste in our oceans.
Okay.
And we're not just talking about illegal drugs here. This is like your everyday medications.
Yeah.
Yeah. Painkillers, antidepressants, all of it.
Wow.
It's making its way from our wastewater systems into our waterways and eventually into the ocean.
In the articles that you sent, they mentioned other animals that are affected by this too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's not just the sharks.
No, definitely not. A couple of examples that really stood out to me.
Okay.
They found cocaine in mussels in the UK.
Mussels.
Yeah, and mussels are filter feeders, right?
Right. So they're filtering the water. And
Exactly.
if the water's contaminated.
They're accumulating it in their systems, which, by the way, can disrupt their ability to filter the water. So it's like this crazy ripple effect.
Wow. So it's really messing things up.
Yeah, and then there was another one, I think it was in Italy.
Okay.
They found traces of cocaine in eels. Eels, yeah. And they seem to be super vulnerable to, like, behavioral changes because of the cocaine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, researchers were seeing, like, weird swimming patterns and increased anxiety levels.
So they're like freaking out a little bit.
Kind of, yeah.
That's kind of scary. Like that's something, that we think is so routine. Like taking medication can have these crazy effects on these creatures that are like miles away.
Totally. It really shows how interconnected everything is,
Yeah.
Like, we think of the ocean as this vast, separate thing, but it's not.
Right.
What we do here on land, it has a direct impact.
Okay, so we've got these sharks with cocaine in their systems.
Yeah.
And in some places, people actually eat those sharks.
Right.
Not the most appetizing thought.
It's not ideal.
What happens if you eat a cocaine shark?
The million-dollar question.
Right.
Honestly, we don't really know yet.
So we don't know what the health risks are?
Not really, no. It's something that needs a lot more research,
Yeah.
but it just kind of highlights a bigger problem, right?
Right.
We're finding all sorts of pharmaceuticals in marine life all over the place.
And we don't even know what it all means yet.
Exactly. For these animals and for us.
This is a lot.
The big problem.
Like, what can we even do about this?
It feels overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
But, awareness is always the first step.
Okay.
So by talking about this, hopefully we can start to change things.
So, like, what would that look like?
Well, I mean, for starters, just being mindful about how we dispose of our medications.
Okay.
Don't flush them down the toilet. A lot of places have take-back programs, or designated disposal sites.
Right. Check your local area.
Exactly.
But I feel like that's just, one small part of it.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
it's going to take a much bigger effort. Right?
We need, like, systemic change.
Okay.
Stricter regulations on how pharmaceutical waste is handled.
And that goes for, like, individuals, but also, like, the companies themselves.
Especially the companies.
Yeah.
And then there's also, like, the technology side of it.
Okay.
Like, we need to invest in better wastewater treatment.
That can filter this stuff out.
Exactly.
Are we making any progress on that?
Some, yeah.
Okay.
A few European countries are kind of leading the way with pharmaceutical waste programs.
Okay.
And there's some cool research happening on the wastewater treatment stuff.
But there's hope.
There's definitely hope. It's a collective effort, though. You know? It's going to take governments, corporations, and individuals to make it happen.
It really shows how, like, even small choices can make a difference.
100%.
So we've talked about the science, the effects on the environment,
Yeah.
the risks to sharks and to us.
Right.
What's the takeaway for our listeners?
I think, for me at least, it's kind of a wake-up call. You know, it shows just how impactful our actions can be, even when we don't realize it.
Even when it seems like something small.
Right. Like every pill, every product,
Yeah.
it all goes somewhere,
Yeah.
And it can have these crazy consequences.
It's like that butterfly effect thing, but with pharmaceuticals and sharks.
Exactly.
It's not about being scared, though.
Yeah.
It's about taking responsibility and making conscious choices.
Absolutely.
Because our actions really do matter.
They do.
So it's not about, like, flushing all our meds down the toilet
Right.
or swearing off seafood.
No, not at
It's
all.
more about just, like, being aware, being a little more conscious.
Yeah. Thinking about where things come from, where they go when we're done with them.
Right, like our choices do matter.
They really do.
Even if they seem small.
Yeah.
It's about like looking at the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
Thinking about those long-term effects.
100%.
The stuff we might not even realize is happening.
Exactly. And this is just one species in one specific place.
Right.
Who knows what else is out there?
That is a good point.
So much we don't know yet.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you were saying about awareness. Like, the more we know,
The better.
the more we can actually do something.
Absolutely.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive on cocaine sharks,
Yeah.
what's, like, the final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
I think it's about changing how we see the world, you know?
Okay.
Like realizing that everything is connected.
Yeah.
Our actions have these ripple effects, even when we don't see them.
Yeah, it's, like you said, it's a wake-up call.
It is.
Don't be afraid. Just, beware and be open to changing how we do things.
Exactly.
This was a good one. This was really interesting.
It was fascinating, yeah.
And to our listener, thank you so much for sending this in.
Yeah, great topic.
This was a really thought-provoking deep dive.
For sure.
And for everyone listening, keep those questions coming.
Yeah, keep them coming.
Keep learning, keep being curious.
And keep diving deep.
We'll catch you in the next one.